As they gather in Boston, Republicans will try to put a spotlight on efforts to grow and expand the GOP. But before they can do that, they're going to have to close a growing rift that threatens to pit the party against itself in many ways. We want to bring in our Wednesday gaggle from American Crossroads, Jonathan Collegio, former Democratic Senator from Arkansas, Blanche Lincoln, and the Washington Post, David Nakamura. Nice to see all you guys together today. Let's start, if we can, just finishing up this topic of voter turnout. As we look at the staggeringly low numbers in Massachusetts, the numbers in New Jersey overnight, what sort of an impact as we look to the future, Blanche, perhaps, does this happen in Virginia as we look at the significant race taking place there between Cuccinelli and McAuliffe?
I still think it's about the economy. I think people, you know, as you mentioned, are they disgruntled with politics and elected officials? Yeah, because we keep moving off the target, which should be putting the economy back on track and putting people back to work. You know, there's tons of people out there. I came through Harrisburg, Pennsylvania the other day and stopped at the Walmart to fill my backpacks for the church program, backpacks for kids. And there were people in there, 2 women, who were filling carts full of stuff. People out there, you know, they're hurting still, and we need to make sure that we're focused on keeping our eye on the focus.
Well, so let's talk then about what the focus is for the Republicans, Jonathan, right now as they gather up in the city of Boston right now. Reince Priebus has said that the plan was to fix the party. He said so 5 months ago. Have the Republican Party, has it made sufficient progress in that period of time? They moved in the right direction?
I think that they've done a great job. They've hired a chief technology officer over from Facebook. They've hired a chief digital officer. They now have more staff in the field than they do in their Washington, D.C. headquarters. So I think that they're going to be an outward-focused RNC. I also think that it's important to look at the contrast between them and the DNC. The RNC has eliminated all of its debt. The DNC is still sitting on top of $18 million of debt, and a lot of their activity is now flowing through the Obama campaign apparatus that became a nonprofit, Organizer for Action. So I think that there's a little bit of tension there, and I think you have to look at the RNC in contrast to what's happening on the other side of the aisle.
Certainly a strong critique of the OFA in recent days coming out of Republican circles right now. David, I want to ask you, obviously one of the challenges that exists for Republicans right now is Republicans pitted against Republicans. You take what's going on in Kentucky right now for Mitch McConnell. Before they can fight a increasingly strong Democratic opponent, they have to fight amongst themselves. How big of an issue is this?
That could be an issue there. Georgia's another one where you have an open seat, several qualified Republicans running for it. And I think what that does is not only does it drain resources when the Republicans have to sort of compete against each other, but also could give Democrats who are sort of waiting in the wings for the general election some insight as to where the weaknesses are in these candidates. I think, you know, I think the Republicans themselves are going to identify that. You already see Mitch McConnell having to sort of run against a rich businessman on the Republican side in the primary. You have the state secretary sort of waiting there. So I think it's a problem. However, I think you still have to probably call the Republicans favorites in those 2 races, and those are critical to really Republicans if they have a hope of taking back the Senate, holding on to those 2 seats.
All right, you guys stick around. We're going to talk to you about some other topics, among them Hillary Clinton and some of the other challenges she may have as we head toward 2016. But right now, some sad news to share with you this morning from the world of politics. Legendary political reporter and commentator Jack Germond has passed away. He covered decades of presidential campaigns and political fights as the bureau chief for Gannett, later as a columnist for the Baltimore Sun. The Daily Rundown was lucky to have him as a friend and guest. I knew Chuck Todd knew him well, even getting his horse race predictions during Triple Crown season. As Chuck tweeted this morning, Jack Germond, quote, was one of the great happy warriors of political reporting, great sense of humor, and a man who loved the ponies. Jack Germond was 85 years old.